Dad gazed across the bay. I thought I'd hold up better, he murmured. I should have told them to get out. You reached out to me, I answered. That was the brave part. In the living room, I flipped open my laptop, tethered it to my phone's signal, and canceled every unauthorized reservation still waiting to happen. I messaged every guest, listing taken down by owner, full refund processed. For the one who'd threatened a bad review, I attached the exact HOA bylaw in question. I typed a brief note to the neighbors. You might have noticed extra cars lately. There was a misunderstanding. There will be no more short-term rentals at 24C Spray. Julia tried to spin it at least 3 different ways. First attempt. We only wanted what was best for everyone. She perched on a closed suitcase, eyes arranged in gentle sorrow. I wanted the kids to spend more time with their grandparents. You know how busy you always are. Second attempt. It actually makes perfect sense. You're hardly ever here. They're not getting any younger. We're the ones with the energy right now. Third attempt. When I stayed quiet, refused to rise, she sharpened her voice. You think having money makes you the better child, Thomas? It doesn't. You throw cash at problems so you don't have to show up as a human being. I bought a home for our parents, I replied. I didn't purchase a license for you to take it over. She recoiled at the word take, then her face went hard. We won't forget this, she said. Good, I answered. Kyle wouldn't surrender the spare key. Come pry it from me, he grinned, which might have seemed playful if Victor hadn't swapped the lock for a keypad 20 minutes earlier. I stepped around Kyle, punched in 0 to 0 to 0 to 0, then reset the code to whatever Dad picked while Kyle watched his power drift away on the salt breeze. He tried a different threat. You think you're smart with your documents, he said. I know people. I know the registrar at the county office, I said calmly. And your people are about to learn that a revocable trust outranks a fit. He stared, trying to read whether I was bluffing. I wasn't. When they finally hauled their cartons to the SUV, Julia stopped on the steps. You could have just spoken to me like an adult, she said. I've been speaking to you for a decade, I replied. Her lips pressed thin. You'll be sorry when they need real help and you're nowhere. I glanced at Mom pouring iced tea. I glanced at Dad's hand, finally resting easy on the chair. I'm right here, I said. For them, they pulled away. The dog barked at the glass like it understood real estate law. Once they were gone, the rooms felt 10 degrees cooler. Same air, different weight. I could hear the waves through the screens. I could hear my parents breathing without effort. I moved through the house with a garbage bag, gathering sticky juice pouches, a plastic crown, 2 lonely socks. In the guest room drawer, I found Kyle's folded spreadsheet. He'd projected monthly earnings 5 times higher than the maximum HOA penalty. In Julia's handwriting along the edge, Tom will cave if Mom cries. I set the page down like it might cut me. Mom kept saying sorry for the clutter. I kept answering, it's only crumbs. When the sun dropped, Dad took my forearm gently. Son, he said, I don't know how to say this without sounding like I let you kids down. You never let us down, I told him. You gave everything you had. We just kept giving too much to her for too many years. All of us did. He nodded because it was true and truth felt lighter than pretending. I cooked something plain. We ate on the deck. Mom told the story of her first tiny apartment and the mouse she named Bernard because he only visited on Sundays. Dad laughed the laugh that only comes out when he isn't guarding everyone else's feelings. My phone vibrated like an angry beehive. Text from Julia, you made Mom cry. From Kyle, consider this your cease and desist, Dr. Moneybags. From a number I didn't know, Kyle's cousin, we're still on for next weekend, right? Already told friends. I turned the phone face down and finished my salad. That night I activated the security system. I mounted a porch camera with a cheerful little doorbell tune so my parents wouldn't hate it. I saved the new codes in a folder on their desktop titled Bright Days in huge font Dad could read without squinting. I left the trust packet, the deed, and the HOA rules in a drawer marked necessary paperwork. Driving away, Mom stood in the doorway clutching her cardigan. I hate that it had to be like this, she said. I don't, I answered. It was overdue. The following week the ground felt uneven, like a table with one short leg. Julia launched a full-volume campaign in the family group chat. Thomas stole a beach house from his own nieces and nephews. Screenshots flooded in from cousins I barely know. Julia's Instagram stories. Plain black screen, white letters, when wealth turns a person cold. Then a photo of my car parked in the driveway captioned some people think money equals love. I stayed silent. I built a narrow fence. I phoned our aunt who still speaks plainly. I explained, using short, clear sentences, that the house belongs to Mom and Dad and will stay that way while they're alive. I asked her not to pass our mess around like party favors. She said, "About time, Thomas," and that ended it. I sent Julia and Kyle one calm, formal, deadly dull email with 3 numbered points. Any communication about the property comes to me alone. You do not have permission to enter. Any attempt otherwise will involve the HOA and our lawyer. I CC'd only myself. I set it as the automatic reply to anything they sent later about the house. I promised myself I would no longer bargain with a script that always ends in me bleeding. 2 days later, a notification popped up. New inquiry, see Spray Cottage. Kyle had posted it again under a fresh profile, using a picture of the rear deck at sunset. I forwarded the link to the platform's fraud team with the deed and trust attached. 10 minutes later, listing deleted. Account suspended. I didn't feel victory. I felt like the night custodian after the crowd leaves, just cleaning up. Dad rang one morning to say the house smelled like coffee and ocean, and that he'd slept straight through for the first time in ages. Mom texted a picture of her bare feet propped on the railing, toenails painted hot pink the way they were when I was little, and believed she belonged on movie screens. They looked unburdened. Behind that lightness, Julia kept clawing at the door. She sent me a payment request labeled emotional reparations. She mailed my parents a letter that opened with "as your primary caregiver," a phrase that had never once been accurate. Kyle posted a meme of a dollar bill hypodermic like I'd harvested organs for cash. Their racket didn't reach inside the small blue house. One evening, Julia rang from a blocked number. I picked up because some part of me is still tender or foolish. She went silent when she heard me breathe. Then she tried a softer blade. "Tommy, please, we're drowning. Kyle's contract fell through. We're about to lose the apartment. The kids." I shut my eyes. There's a line where compassion becomes fuel for the same fire. "Julia, I will not talk about the house, so money matters more to you than blood." I said something about boundaries, about how I can love family without funding chaos. She hung up. I let the quiet settle like a patient finally stable. Watched, guarded, sore in the way that means healing. 2 weekends later, I drove down before dawn, coffee in a travel mug, stethoscope still draped from a 12-hour shift. The bay was polished steel, holding its breath. I oiled a sticky slider. I placed tennis balls on the garage shelf at the exact depth so Dad could park without scraping. I labeled every breaker because Dad likes labels. Mom cooked pancakes, scorched the first round, laughed at herself. We ate at the table and talked about nothing urgent, about grocery lists, about Jan next door who leaves perfect shells in a mason jar on the shared fence, about the pelican who has no interest in dignity. Nobody mentioned Julia for a full hour. It felt like a counter wiped clean. After breakfast, Mom touched my wrist. "I'm going to speak to your sister," she said, "not to fight. Just to say no clearly. I'm not asking you to pick sides," I told her and meant it. I have no interest in declaring winners on scorched ground. I only wanted my parents to have a quiet deck. Mom gave a small smile. "It's not picking sides," she said. "It's ending the play acting." Dad cleared his throat. "I should have modeled that better," he said. "I taught you duty. I never taught you when to close the door. You taught me love and showing up," I said. "I'm only now learning the part about not letting it consume me." He chuckled, low and grateful. I walked the fence line and tightened the gate. I adjusted the camera. I printed a little card for the entry table. "Welcome home, Sam and Ruth." It sounded corny and perfect. Later, alone on the deck, I imagined the headline Julia would write if she controlled the narrative. "I gave my parents a house and tore the family apart." That isn't what happened. What happened is I stopped feeding the troll at the gate. What happened is I offered a gift and then protected it so it couldn't be turned into a weapon. I once believed writing checks purchased harmony. It didn't. It only muffled the resentment while it grew mold behind the drywall. Boundaries are noisy at first. Then they become the kind of quiet no performance can imitate. The messages thinned. Julia found new audiences. Kyle discovered fresh battles. My parents began practicing small, polite refusals that sounded like oxygen to their own lives. "No, we can't keep the kids this weekend." "No, we can't drive over to jump your battery." They started saying yes to afternoon sandwiches, to unplanned naps, to naming sailboats with ridiculous names. A month later, my niece, 16, all black tees and careful eyeliner, slid into my DMs. "The house looks peaceful. Grandma seems lighter." I wrote back, "Come see it whenever Grandma says yes. No apps, no fees, just pancakes." She sent a laughing emoji and then deal, a tiny ceasefire with someone who never started the war. Last night, after a long case, I drove to the house because I needed proof it was still standing. Through the window, I saw Dad in his reading chair. glasses halfway down his nose, exactly like the nights in our old apartment when the only light came from a second-hand television. Mom had a quilt across her knees and a half-finished puzzle spread out. The sound of the tide slipped in and laid itself beneath everything like low, steady music. I stayed on the sidewalk. I didn't knock. I let the glow from their windows tell me why any of this mattered. Here's what I understand now. Love is not throwing your body over someone else's bad choices. It isn't applauding wreckage just because the wrecker shares your last name. Love is a house with strong light and doors that actually lock. Love is paperwork that holds firm when people won't. Love is telling your parents, rest now, and telling everyone else, no, I am not the family ATM. I am not the designated villain. I am not the escape hatch you yank when the blaze you started gets too warm. I am their son. A man whose work demands precision. A brother who finally brought that precision home. If my sister ever wants to stand on this deck and watch this water with our parents, the door is right there. She can walk through it with open hands and a real apology, not a revenue projection. She can be family without adjusting the thermostat. Until then, the house stays, the locks work, the gulls argue overhead, the windows hum when the breeze moves in off the bay. Inside, my parents breathe without bracing. That's the moral if morals still matter. A gift should never cost you your own skin, and a boundary is not cruelty. It's how love leaves the porch light on without setting the whole street on fire.